I am so excited to be joined today by Erin from Paper Raven, Erin McManness. And Paper Raven is a wonderful company that Erin does these beautiful illustrations of like nature and super intricate, delicate work that I love, and sells all kinds of greeting cards and stationery, giftable things. And she also works with some major clients like Macy's and Publix. So I'm so excited to be talking to her today. Hi, Erin.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you for joining me. I'm so excited to learn more about you. Would you give me a little background about how you got started?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started building my business while I was full-time employed around 2013, 2014. And I was employed as a product designer full-time. And then around 2015, I took my business full-time. So it will be 6 years in April. So it started as a small greeting card line. I knew I wanted to start with an illustration focus, and greeting cards were super accessible, low cost point, that felt like I could really enter the market. So while I was working full time, I started taking online classes like during my lunch break about like personal and business finance and how to design a product line and all that like good businessy stuff.
Mm,
That's sometimes not people's forte,
most
but it's
people don't. Yeah.
really mine. And I love it. Like I love the business stuff. And so I love talking to people like you because I know you love talking business
Yes,
stuff.
I sure do.
So it kind of started that way. And I was laying a foundation because I knew I eventually wanted to leave my job. I ended up getting laid off. And so I left a lot sooner than I planned to, but luckily I had built that foundation to a point where the floor didn't completely drop out from under me.
Okay, yeah.
And it was one of those things that at the time I was like, oh my gosh. But then it turned out to be like the best gift I've ever received.
Oh, that's so good.
So, so
So
yeah.
I want to dig in. You were a product designer. Was that like were you doing artwork for products, or was it more like, the sculptural, or both?
It was more artwork for products. I worked for a private label that did um, pot holders and aprons. So we would just
Ooh.
apron that had a honeybee on it and lavender, and we would do.
I come from home textiles too. I did a private label. Worked for I did tabletop, but we had the kitchen department as well. So,
Oh, cool. Yeah, it was all that kind of stuff, and it wasn't. I was thankful to make the transition to self-employment, but that job and some of the other jobs I had before that really taught me a lot about, certain skill sets that I didn't
mm,
really know that I was going to need later on when I would work with clients. And so it was kind of a blessing in disguise that I had all of that experience that I could take into my own business.
yeah, the in-house experience is just, you can't. It can be so draining and obviously, like, overwhelming in many ways. And people are always like, oh, be my own boss. That's like the best thing. But there are some major benefits to working in-house, especially like the learning curve that you're like forced
Yes.
to figure out. So how did you enter the stationery market? I mean, you started designing, obviously, I'm sure, but did you start with exhibiting at stationery show, or how did you kind of kick off?
Well, I did not ever exhibit at the
Oh, okay.
station. I actually finally was planning to exhibit at Certex. I went in 2020 before the world shut down and thought, oh, this is
I
great.
was there too. We
Finally
ended
gonna
up
do it.
hanging out. I was there.
We passed each
I'm
other.
sure we did.
Uh,
Yeah.
but and I thought, okay, this is the year. Because to be totally honest with you, when I started my business, I knew that I didn't want to be a business that was operating from a debt standpoint. So I didn't take out any kind of like business loan or anything. I kind of just worked with what I had.
Yeah.
And there's good things about both of those things. Um, but for me, the overhead cost was a huge barrier as I was beginning my business, and my business was sort of in its infancy and maybe like toddler phase. Maybe now we're like in kindergarten. I don't know. Maybe I won't sell myself short. Um, but yeah, so that was a major hurdle for me. And I feel like now I'm in a place where I could really make that financial commitment to show and do it the way that I would envision doing it to its fullest extent. And then we had coronavirus. So the world had other plans for me, but
Yeah.
it's been going pretty well. I know there have been a lot of people who have said that there's a ton of benefits to showing, and then a lot of people who are like me who have never shown and have had a robust career and are fine with that. So
did you just like start sending out like, so product businesses scare me basically. I've never had a product line, you know, like obviously all my designing is for other manufacturers. So like, it seems like so much work, which is why I'm not trying to undertake it. People are like, why don't you just have your own line? Like, oh, that's not just like why don't I just do this? Like, I did design a greeting card line when I was still working in-house and like sort of started to show it around a little bit, but I was so like naive to what that really meant and like what that was really about. So I don't even really count that. So I'm curious as to what, you know, how you kind of jumped off without a trade show.
Well, I think for me, I had built a following on Instagram, so I did have an audience that I had cultivated and was able to sell to. I also started pitching my work to retail shops and things like that. Actually, one resource that I have found incredibly helpful to me is the community over at Proof to Product. That's I don't know if you know Katie Hunt.
I've heard of Proof to Product, but I don't know her.
Yeah, I took one of their courses a while back, and it was basically like how to develop your product line, which was really helpful to me. I had taken a couple of other things too, and so I really started trying to sell on Etsy. I set up my own Shopify website. I started selling wholesale, and for half a minute, I had like a wholesale rep and she was kind of starting her own thing. And we worked together for a little while, and then we kind of transitioned away. But I started in that way, and kind of have slowly built it from there.
Gotcha. So, as I said, it does scare me, product-based business, and I know now besides just selling your products, you also work with clients and design for clients who manufacture your artwork as well. So if you were like advising someone who's just getting started and has all the enthusiasm and energy in the world, God bless them. If you were advising someone, would you say that, like, you know, obviously it worked out for you. I did it differently. It worked out for me. Like, there's no right answer, of course, but would you like do that again? Would you recommend like starting in product, or would you say do it, maybe there's a different way, or I like the direction of client work now, so maybe I would start there, knowing, or whatever? I don't know. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but
Yeah, no, that's a great question, because I think the beauty of like where we are today as like an artist community at large is that there are so many options. Like, you can run your business however you want. And so I really think it's about like, what do you love? Like, what do you love to do? What are the parts of your business that you really want to do? I still love designing product. And I think if you have the desire and the space, then I think like you should go for it. There's a lot of different ways you can do that. But if you want to say, let's say you want to design product, you want to have that thing in your hands, and you want to have an Etsy store, or you want to have a Shopify store, but maybe you live in an apartment, which I lived in for like most of my adult life, and you don't have all that extra space. Like, I think if you wanted to get into product without a huge barrier of entry, you could do like print on demand stuff. What I do is I like to go to different print on demand sites, and there's like Printify, Printed Mint, Guten, a bunch of others, Printful, I think. And you can upload your artwork. You can like sign up for free. You can upload your artwork, and then you can just buy your own samples. So you could see how the product actually is in your hands before you were to sell it. And then usually for people who are unfamiliar, what happens is if you like it and you list it on your website, every time you get an order for that, it automatically goes to the fulfillment center, and that fulfillment center prints the thing, whatever it is, a mug or a t-shirt or an art print, and then it sends it directly to your customer. So you don't ever have to hold inventory. You don't ever have to do I mean, you do have to do customer service a little bit, but it's a very easy way to get into product if you don't want to say like, oh, I want to make, 20-inch by 20-inch pillows, but like I don't have a warehouse to hold 100 of them or whatever the order quantity is. So I think if you're interested in product, you could start that way. And then even if it's greeting cards, I mean, print on demand companies do greeting cards too. I have all my inventory for my greeting cards here because I have a little bit of space for it. And I like having control of that part of the process. So I think it's like a little bit of personal preference, a little bit of like life situation, and a little bit of like, what are you passionate about? Like the more that I've gotten into licensing, I've found that I enjoy that a lot more than like, say, my wholesale part of my business, because I don't love to pack orders. Like I don't wake up in the morning, I'm like, time to pack orders, Like,
no, I know. That's where I'm like,
some people love that. Some people thrive in that. And like, they want to have a team. And I have just found that I want to sit down, make the artwork, and have things happen. Like, I don't love the manufacturing part of the business. And so for licensing, that's perfect because I just do the artwork and someone else takes care of the manufacturing. And oftentimes they're like pros at that part of it. Whereas like little me would have a really hard time sourcing stuff like that. Like maybe it's, some special product, like a clipboard with a notepad on top and a matching pen, like difficult for me to source, especially in the US. And like for me and my business, US products are very important to me. So I've tried to stay away from having products manufactured overseas. I know a lot of people who have been able to do it ethically, but for me, that's not where I want to spend my time. So yeah, that was kind of a long-winded way.
No, it's so interesting. Yeah, that's great advice about, potentially print on demand options and getting in there. And thinking about what really, what you enjoy. I have a course, Start Your Surface Pattern Business, and in that course, I teach how to pitch to manufacturers and stuff like that. And one student, she just like she recently, she took the course, and I think she did, I'm sure, some pitching, but she like recently came back and was like, I just decided like pitching's not for me, and she's starting a wrapping paper business, like a high-end, like ethical wrapping paper business.
Oh, cool.
Like, awesome, like perfect. So she just like she figured that out, that wasn't where she wanted to be, and she wasn't gonna keep trying to get past the gatekeepers or whatever it is, and she's doing it for herself. So it's like, that's amazing, whatever works, obviously.
And I think there's a lot of pressure to like have to know that. And a lot of that, like I think a lot of younger artists or newer artists or people who are just starting their business feel all this pressure to like, well, I've got to like be a brand and I've got to make these decisions. And a lot of those decisions come out of the natural being in your business of like every day. And like, you don't really learn some of those things like until, like your student, like she started pitching and she was like, I really don't love this, like I didn't start to realize that I preferred licensing to wholesaling and developing product until I started doing more of it. And I was able to say like, oh, my favorite projects I've started to notice, like these are the projects I love. And then this is the thing that I'm like, I keep procrastinating on it. So I think when you pay attention like to your body and like pay attention to those parts of your business that you're just like, oh, I love doing that, or I hate doing that, or not hate, but like don't.
Yeah, it's not your favorite. Right.
And that comes with like just doing it and just trying, and just seeing what happens.
You're right. I agree. There is so much pressure to be in being a new artist. I think there's just like the content that comes swimming at you. And that kind of segues to my next question, which is, you have such a distinctive style, such a beautiful, like intricate, like, and the way your hand lettering has a very, specific to you style. How do you feel about signature styles? Because this is another thing that is like new artists feel pressured to find this, signature style. And I personally still don't really have one. So I'm curious, but I'm wondering, like, should I be finding one? Can you give me some business advice here, please? No, but what do you, where, like, how important do you think that is to your success?
Um, I don't know. I feel like there are two sides to this. And one is that, in my experience, I have developed a pretty unique style. And thank you very much for the compliments and kind words on it. Um, and I have seen that that style brings me measurable amounts of work. For
Mm,
example, one of the clients you mentioned was Macy's. And in 2019, I was able to work with them to work on a line of the plastic gift cards that were in their nationwide stores. And we did, I think it was a total of like 15 when all was said and done.
amazing.
But they came to me, they approached me on Instagram because they said that they had been following for a while, which was like, when people say that, I'm like, oh gosh, I hope I didn't say anything embarrassing. I always like scroll back through my feed really quick and like make sure. But they came to me because they had seen specific images on my Instagram. They were like, we like this, and this. And can you create this for us using this as a reference point? And so for me, I've had measurable projects with clients come from developing a signature style. But then there's kind of a flip side to it of like, if I want to do something out of the box because I want to try something new or something is trending and maybe I want to just try it, I can try it privately all day long. But if I try and then market that work, people can get a little bit confused because I don't want to say I've like pigeonholed myself because I think there's a lot of variation you can do within a style, but I think it definitely does. There's a feeling of like needing to keep up that.
Yeah, I see that. I understand what you mean by that for sure. And that's where, I mean, I think that's where I am in, like, I'm in that for my own licensing portfolio, like for clients, I can kind of do any style as needed, but not any style, but a lot of different styles. But, for my licensing portfolio, I have things that I lean a certain way, but I also have these like collections that are totally not, if you saw it, you wouldn't be like, oh my God, like you would be like, really? You did that? Like, I'm so surprised. But I don't really show Instagram that often, and I just kind of like keep it out of the public eye, but it's still like available. Like if somebody wants it and sees it, like, maybe it's useful. But yeah, I think I don't know. I think I better start leaning into a style. I've been having this discussion, and I do tell people you don't need a signature style. Like you don't stress out about it. But I think I should like lean a little bit more into the things that I enjoy. But I don't know. It's tricky. It is a tricky.
No, I think you're right because I feel like, and that's something like kind of what we were talking about before. It comes from just doing it every day. Like that signature style is not something that you sit down and you're like, I'm going to have this style, it's something that are just like visual choices you make over and over again based on the way that you interpret the world. And it can be from like all kinds of different inspiration points. Like maybe there is an illustrator who you love and you love the way that, they do a certain thing, but then you also love the way that like maybe a more like an art school type artist, like a Matisse or a Picasso, or, maybe you like the way that they've expressed something and you're kind of pulling in all of these different things to make like a unique voice for yourself. And I think that just kind of comes over time. But I agree, there's a lot of pressure. Like people think they have to have a style, and it's something that is,
it can be immobilizing, that's the thing about all these like choices and ways to start things. That's what I find is that people get like they can't make a decision, so they don't, and so then they're treading like spinning their wheels is what I really mean to say. And like, and I'm always like, it's really not that serious, just move forward. And that's my personality. That's just like what I mean, that's just the type of thing that I'm like, we're going to move forward no matter what. But I really feel for artists who are starting out and just feel like, oh, I need to have this all figured out. And it's like, no, you absolutely don't worry about it. So kind of around the fact that you do have pretty distinct style, I have heard you talk before, and we were just chatting about it a bit, about running into some problems with copyright infringement, with your work being used without your permission in various ways. And I mean, this is a big problem in the artist community for sure. And so, I just wanted to talk a little bit about kind of copyrights and fair usage and all that type of stuff. I'm like, do I have a specific question? Not really, but so.
Start.
But what do you think is sort of the line between, let's say, being inspired by an artist and, copying their work to a point that it's detrimental to the original artist?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I feel like there can be a lot of gray area, and that gray area shifts depending on who you are and your level of experience and what you've been taught and maybe what you have not been taught.
That's the thing.
And I think for me, like, the bottom line is a gut check. If I can look at a piece of artwork and be like, I recognize that, that's when it crosses the line. If I look at something and say, I've seen that, then that blurs the line between inspiration and copying. And I think, like, there are so many artists that, like, I love, and things that I've seen them doing that I'm like, oh, I love that idea. But I think you really have to be careful, especially if you don't, like, have a signature style developed yet and you're still kind of playing around. And, like, there's a lot of strengths to that. The flexibility that comes with that is great. But I think artists, who are, if you're setting out to say, I want to make an illustration today, and you have an artist pulled up and you're looking at, like, one or two of their specific works and, like, basing your stuff off of that, I think that can become a little dangerous pretty quickly. But I think if you have, like, I don't know, I'm not quite saying this right. I guess it really is just like a gut check kind of thing. Like, if sit down and look at a bunch of stuff and be inspired and get that creative energy. Like, everyone knows that feeling. Like, if you're an artist, you have that creative energy and it's kind of burning below the surface and you're, like, really excited and, like, energized to get to work. And so go look at a bunch of stuff, but then put that stuff away and then sit down and don't look at any of that.
Yeah.
And then make what you want to make, or doodle in your sketchbook and combine ideas or move things around, or, add your own. As long as you're adding your unique voice to it, then I think you can be inspired all day long. But I don't subscribe to the idea that if you change X amounts, that then suddenly it's yours.
Right.
Like, I'm running into that issue right now where I had someone, and I can only speak very vaguely to this, I had someone trace my work last summer and started selling it on stock sites. And one of the things that I've run into with trying to nail down the copyright on that and move forward, with the company that I'm talking to about it, is they are saying that, like, oh, well, they added this, so it's not yours anymore. And I find that that's very problematic, because if something can exist without the starting place, and then you tack one ribbon or one bow onto it, it doesn't make it suddenly yours. Like, my friend, we were chatting about this issue, and my friend said it perfectly. She said, you can't paint a copy of Starry Night and then put, one or two more flowers in it, or a couple more stars in the sky, or a moon in there, and say it's not Starry. You didn't copy Starry Night.
Yeah.
Not to
no, of course.
Not to, the great Vincent. No, but it's kind of, this is such a gray area, which is kind of why I'm like a little bit.
I mean, it is a really gray area. And, so having worked in-house, you were a product designer, so I bet you ran up against this a lot. you know, we got references when I was working in house. We would get references, and it would be like pretty much, we want something like this. And even clients do it to this day to me. You know, it's like, and I think that's a difference between having a signature style and not, because you know the way that clients speak is in visuals. You know, they will send you references, of course, and when they can point to your work, like as you were saying about Macy's saying, here's the 5 pieces that we love of yours, use these pieces. That's like wonderful. But
Yeah.
sometimes they're coming from a totally, you know, they're showing me somebody else's work. And but especially when I worked in house, it would be a thing, you know, it's like, here's what we want. We want something like this. Change it, you know, basically change it a little bit, change it to the point that it's legal, basically. And that is a common directive when you're working for companies. That's not uncommon in any way. So as a designer, of course, you know, it's like you have to stand up and make those choices, because you know it is harmful to the artist. And would you kind of like could you, because this hasn't really, I would say, I don't know if this has happened to me, because I pretty much put my head in the sand about it. Like I've never like run into it, but you know, and I'm not that big, so I wouldn't necessarily think that it would be happening. But like whenever I'm in an artist group and they're like, oh, this site is copying everyone, you know, like this random Chinese site is doing this, I was like, I never search my stuff. They're like, go search, make sure your stuff isn't up there. And I never search. Like I never look for my stuff. So who knows? It might be out there. But since this has happened to you, can you kind of tell me a little bit about like how that directly affects you? You know, I mean, because the stock site situation, like, you know.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. There's a lot of the way it affects, like, for example, what I was just talking about with this copyright issue. So this person traced my work. So they not only took my work and my hard work and my original concept and idea, but then they took my style, because the reason I found out about that was because I had an art director who sent me a brief for like, oh, we want this piece that's, you know, that looks kind of like this piece you did here. And I was like, that's not mine. It looks like mine. And then that kind of led me down the rabbit hole of all of this stuff. So they stole my style, which then steals my reputation, or not steals it, but undermines my reputation.
Right.
If I have worked hard to develop a signature style and then it's available as stock,
Yes,
I lose.
Stock site is a big problem.
Yeah. Why would a client come to me and pay me an hourly rate or a licensing fee or even a flat rate for a buyout if they could go get it for $15? You know, so the person stole my work, then they undermined my reputation and my livelihood. But then there's the theft of time. And for this person, I had to file tons of DMCAs, which is the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. And essentially, if you find your work somewhere, you can host it on another website. You can ask the website to take it down. They legally have to take it down, and the other party has a week to respond to say, oh no, like I made this, blah, blah, blah. This is made in error. So there was the time to file all of those. Then I've had all this time to litigate, you know, the issues that I'm working through now, which has been not a small amount of time. And that's taking time away from all of the other jobs I could be doing, or my personal time, or time that I can rest, or time that I could work on a project. And so it's theft of that as well. And then it's theft of my feelings of security. Because as we were chatting about before, over 2020, I saw a huge rise in copying, art theft, you know, being too inspired, whatever that gray area is there. And as a result, I felt like I had to spend a lot of time looking over my shoulder and a lot of time checking up on my work and checking into people that I had kind of bookmarked as, like, you know, which I do, you know, I have bookmarks of people that I keep my eye on because in the past they've moved a little too close. And that's hard as an artist. Over the last year, I've had to make a concerted effort to say, you know what, this is going to come with the territory. I have to deal with it as professionally as possible. and I have to find a way to move forward because I can't spend all my energy looking over my back. It's going to happen. And when it does, I will deal with it.
Yeah.
And so I would say, just as like a capstone to that, if you're worried about protecting your work, I would definitely say one of the things that I've done is watermarking my images on Instagram. I just put it in the little lower right-hand corner. And I've found that like there's so much sharing and most of the time people have very good intentions and they don't think there's anything malicious going on. They share your work, it doesn't get tagged, you know, they think it's beautiful, everyone thinks it's beautiful, but then you don't get any credit. I was chatting with my friend the other day who had her work posted by like a really big songwriter's Instagram, but they tag her in the photo because it was just a screenshot that they had found somewhere else, and it was just sort of like, oh, it's a bummer. Like they weren't trying to be malicious, but yeah. So I found that putting a watermark, like something inconspicuous, or writing your initials, hiding it somewhere in the illustration. And then if you do find that someone has taken your work or posted it without your permission, or a worst case scenario is like selling it, I would say it's very tempting to like have like the call out culture that we have now, but I really recommend approaching that person privately first, because you never know who's watching your behavior. And if you're looking to develop client relationships and things like that, they're going to see how you handle those situations. And that is, you know, for better or worse, going to change their perception of what it might be like to work with you.
Right.
And so I would really caution people. Obviously, there are cases where, you know, going to them privately does not yield any results, and there needs to be public attention on it. There have been a lot of artists that have felt very valid in doing that. But I think first and foremost, most of those artists that are, you know, well known have always at least tried to approach that person privately or that company privately. If you do need to take it to something where, you know, you're having to draft like a cease and desist, or you're having to negotiate based on like any kind of damages, I would really hire a professional attorney to help you, because there's a lot
another way that you know, obviously another major cost to being a small business, a small artist. And when that happens to you, this is like so compelling, like to hear you describe it, because I mean, of course, I mean, like I know it for sure, and I'm sure many people who might watch this know it, but to think of all the ways that it really is, you know, it really can hurt a small business, and just, you know, be more aware of that. I'm interested about the watermark. You know, I just read in somebody was talking about this in a Facebook group that they do like Digimark or something. It's like sort of like it's not a watermark that you see, but it's some sort of like metadata for like your images that cannot be like erased. So you can find like if basically if someone steals it and it's online, like if they then put it online in a different way, then you can see that it's yours. Like you can kind of prove that it's yours. I'm very interested. Have you heard of this?
Oh, no. I mean, I've heard of something kind of similar, but I don't think it's exactly the same thing. But, and I know like if you, like, there are ways like in Photoshop and Illustrator, you can go up to like file info and you can copyright information, but I don't know what happens to that if it's then saved as something else, and you know, any number of things could happen. But I would be very curious to hear more about what you're talking about, because that sounds.
The company was called Digimark. So Digimark. I don't. We'll have to. I'll have to look into that, and I'll put in the description. I'll put the like whatever, the URL or something if people are interested in looking at it. But yeah, I just heard about this the other day. So.
Yeah, no, that's really good to know. Thank you for the homework assignment.
Fair enough. Yes, exactly.
On the Friday afternoon.
Yeah, I know, right? Exactly.
But I did.
That's what I heard. So again, just rumors, but the person who was talking about it was saying that it's that, you know, it's something that you can add, but I think that it is some sort of subscription based. Like it's not just, like because it's some sort of like encryption thing, I guess. I don't know. But anyways, something we'll have to look into. But yes, write your name on your work or like a little something and put it a little bit over your work. I mean, I always do my Instagram and I always just put my website, copyrightElizabethsilver.com, just to like kind of get two in one. But it's always at the bottom. It's not really, I always feel like if people really want to, they could just crop
They
it
could
out.
stamp it out
Gotta do it a little bit and over things.
yeah.
So speaking of Instagram, I've made all these assumptions about you by following you on Instagram. None of them are bad, don't worry. But but now I have some questions to find out if they're really true. Which is, it's from your Instagram stories and just in general, like seeing your persona. It was so funny just now when you're talking about like how you might deal with something. Acting professionally through your Instagram to show what you might be like to a client, because you wouldn't want to fly off the handle and just and I was internally laughing because I'm like, yeah, I could not see you doing that because you seem so like you have so many boundaries and you're so like even keels and everything like that. So I'm curious about your like social media boundaries, and how you might disconnect when it's so easy to get caught up in that scroll.
That is really true. And thank you very much for making assumptions about me. I will first and foremost admit I'm a Leo through and through. So I feel like I present a really, or at least I try to present a well-balanced version of myself. But if you saw me behind my screen when some of these things happen, it might be different.
A different story.
Just stay under the bar a couple of times. But yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, like I'm now in my 30s, and one of the revelations of getting a little bit older was that I felt like I didn't want to, like, I was very aware of negative energy and like how much I didn't want it.
Yeah.
And how much, like, because my art is my livelihood, if I'm in that, like, and I still go there for sure. If I'm in that downward spiral or something is pissing me off, I have a really hard time creating good work out of that. I can always tell like the stuff that I make when I'm joyful versus the stuff that I make when I have to trudge through it. And so I really try and protect my energy. And a lot of that for me is making sure that whatever I share on Instagram, especially because that's my main social media presence, I always want to say stuff like things that I advocate for, or things that maybe I feel is an injustice in the world, or things that I want to speak out about. I always try and frame it in a positive way. Like, how can we make this change versus, this sucks, I blame this. And there's a time and a place for that. But for me, I found that remaining positive helps me to have a better perspective. And then as a result, the engagement that I have with other people who are in my audience or who are my potential clients, that is a more meaningful engagement. I have this weird fear of people seeing me as a negative Nancy. So, there have been a lot of times where I've wanted to share something negative, or I'm just in a place where I'm just feeling grumpy, and like that, could come through. And I have that moment of like, no. Yeah. And then I delete it because I'm very careful about my brand presence. And I want people to know that at this point in my life, I do have things that upset me, and I do have things that kind of get under my skin, but that's not going to affect my professionalism and the ethics behind my brand. That's something that I will fight for. Like, I will go to the top of the hill for is my brand integrity and my own personal integrity. And I think part of that is just being positive and being even keeled. I think there was another part of that question that I just kind of bulldozed through.
Oh, no, this is all pure gold. No, well, how you disconnect from Instagram, even like besides just having, like reactions to what you might be seeing online or what might be happening offline, and having those reactions on Instagram. Besides that, how do you kind of have your, set your boundaries so that you're not, constantly just like, I don't know. There's not like a good or bad way to be on Instagram. There's some people who just like share everything via stories and they do an amazing job and they seem to enjoy it and they seem to like whatever. And then there are some people who are, much more private. I was just curious, if you had any sort of like rules around that for yourself.
That's a really good question. I think if I can be like totally honest, most of that boundary comes from me just being too tired to care. There is so much pressure to always be creating and producing content and giving free content and da. And there's some people who do a wonderful, wonderful job of this. But for me, I have found that that's very not sustainable. And there's this disconnect between all of the stuff on Instagram that's like, let's start glorifying getting enough rest and not like and all this stuff.
Yeah.
But then we're manipulated. Maybe that's not the right word, but Instagram rewards those who use the app more. I mean, that's part of the algorithm. Yeah. And so if you post every day, you get more engagement, you're rewarded. And so we have this cultural conversation right now of
self-care and mental health and all that stuff. Yeah.
But then we're in this social media space that says you have to create more content and now the content needs to look like this. And if you're not doing inspirational quotes, we're not going to give you any engagement. And that becomes very draining as a creator. There are days where I wake up and I'm like, I know I have to post to Instagram, but I have nothing to say. That is a huge like spiral of guilt that I go through because, my brand doesn't depend on my Instagram because I don't want it to, but there's definitely a component of my business to that. Instagram has brought me a ton of clients. Instagram has brought me, that's how we connected. Like that's how I connect with a lot of my, business friends and people that I admire and people who inspire me. It's a very critical part of my business, but I also find it very exhausting. And so for me, it's really just this feeling of like, you know what, if I don't feel like posting on Instagram, it's okay. Like no one really pays that much attention to me anyway. No one's, where's Erin? It'll be fine.
Like it's bigger in our own head, isn't it? Right?
Exactly.
It is.
We think everyone's going to be like, they missed me. Sorry guys, I've been away. And everyone's what? Like, oh, you have?
Yeah, no.
Yes, it's like sort of a natural boundary that like, as I've gotten older, I feel a little bit less pressure because I've found that there's things, in my life that I want to be present in, and I don't always want to be scrolling, and I don't always want to be, doing that. So that boundary comes a little bit more naturally to me, and that might not be, someone else's situation, or, like you said, like some people love to share and they thrive in that, and then some people are more private. And I guess I'm just a person that, in my everyday life is a little bit more private. Yeah. And I don't have an Instagram worthy house right now. So
I'm taking pictures of that. Your background looks perfectly into
Thank you.
I have to have a shower curtain in order to just even look like have it together. And I keep telling everyone it's a shower curtain, so it makes it really extra janky. Like it looks nice, but if I tell everyone that it's an old shower curtain,
it's like how to hack your business.
Mystique is a little bit taken away.
This is behind the scenes, like a hashtag.
Exactly. I should show like, oh, there's my clip right there. There we go, behind the scenes. So, well, on a similar tack of you seeming very even-keeled and very deliberate about, as you were just saying, building your brand and your ethics and that kind of stuff. It seems like you are very deliberate about building your brand and, kind of one step in front of the other, really, And I have a couple business friends who are like this. And I feel it makes me feel like I'm like off the rails, like which I'm not. I know I'm not, but like sometimes when I see people who are just like I'm taking it one step and I'm just moving forward, I feel like oh my god, I feel like I'm everywhere. Is that true? Am I just like fully making this up? How do you approach your business growth? Do you even think about it, or is it just sort of like it's just naturally progressing and you're just where are you on that?
I think maybe a good mix of both. There's a part of me that's like any shiny object.
Ah, well, that's the thing. That's the problem.
Yeah, I definitely suffer, enjoy shiny object syndrome.
Yes.
But I do think that over the last like 6 years of running my business, it's become a little bit easier to know in my gut like what I want to grow towards and what I maybe want to like step back from. Like, I guess maybe 2 years ago at this point, I decided that, I could grow in the wholesale direction and product direction, or I could grow in the licensing direction. And product meant a warehouse and a team and learning how to ship a pallet and barcodes. And that was not for me.
Yeah.
I could see myself going in that direction. If I really wanted to grow, I needed to do these other things. And those things didn't excite me. But then licensing like really excited me because all I really wanted to do was make artwork and like partner with people who did the manufacturing and had these wonderful companies and, and we could collaborate in that way. So I think I've been more intentional about that business growth, and those revelations have come to me through working in my business. And I will say one of the best parts of my year is January and February, because I love to sit down and like plan the year in advance. Most of the time it does not go according to plan.
Okay, good.
But
I'm good, but I mean, it makes me feel a little better.
But there are certain things like I know this month I want to like every year I do a calendar and I poll my subscribers and my followers for like what theme they want. I come up with like 3 or 4 themes and I say, which one do you guys like? And I know like this month, that's what I'm going to be doing. And then by July, for example, I want to have all of my holiday products lined up because holiday is always a big push for me. And I'm getting married in October, so I know I'm not going to be able to do that then. So, and then October through December is just keeping up with holiday. And then there are certain things like I know a lot of my freelance and licensing clients are going to want, let's say, holiday artwork from April to June. So I know I can kind of plan out those parts of my year so I can say, you know what, okay, in March, I might be able to work on that, on that portfolio. Like I know you just had your portfolio week and like I can work on my portfolio then, or I can do client outreach, or I can work on my fabric collection, because I know that in May through June, it's going to be bonkers level busy with holiday artwork. And I know from October to December that I'm going to be really busy with holiday sales. So it really helps me kind of define like where the less active sections of my year and where do I really want to go with that. Like I kind of sit down and say, well, what do I want to do? Do I want to increase passive income? Do I want to grow my licensing clientele? Do I want to expand back into wholesale? Like which one of those like makes me like, oh yeah, I really want to do that. I feel like listening to your body a little bit, like when it like lights up or when it kind of like shuts down. And then, okay, like, well, let's say I want to do, I want to grow my passive income in the moments where I'm not focusing on client work. And then I make a list of like, here's all the things that I do in like tiny little chunks, like put 3 mug designs on printed mints and list them on my website, or design 3 mug designs. And then the next line is put them on printed mints. And then the next one is make an email about new mug designs or something like that, increasing that passive income, or making a printable shop, or, making, for some other people, it might be, like for you, for example, it might be like writing an ebook or like doing something for your courses or,
Right.
So I try and strategize in that way based on what I feel is speaking to me. And knowing that if that changes in a couple of years, that's fine.
Yeah.
I got into wholesale thinking like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get a wholesale agent or a rep, and I'm gonna be in all these stores, and I want to be in 1,000 stores. And then I was like, ooh, no.
Dial it back.
Hey.
Well, that is good that you have those plans. I try to have those plans too, and I mean, I don't know. I can't say that I'm unsuccessful at keeping them. It's more, it's hard to measure because in the last couple of years, the last year and a half has obviously been not difficult. So it's a little bit harder to know where, to measure that success as like from plan to like it worked out. So I mean, I'm like moving forward. That's the thing. I'm always about moving forward, and that sometimes is a little bit shiny object based. But I'm always trying to move forward. But the whole like part of like deliberate and measured are not words that I would really like associate with my own personal business like plan. So that's why when anyone seems deliberate and measured, then I get jealous basically.
I will say that I part of that like beginning of the year planning is looking at the last year, and I have a spreadsheet for like all of my revenue, and I will break it down week by week and say, and I do this throughout the year, so it's not like one crazy thing at the end, but I'll look at like, what are my revenue streams for like retail sales? What is my revenue stream for wholesale, licensing, publishing, and freelance work? And then I'll look at those and say, okay, freelance brought me X amount of dollars this year. My best quarter with that revenue stream was this quarter. So I know, like, I can see like, oh, wholesale only brought me $10,000, but licensing maybe brought me 70, so maybe that's like where I want to spend my time, because I can see my return on investment is so much greater there. And the potential for growth is there too. Like that's another one that I kind of rank my revenue streams. Like wholesale is not as much of a return on investment because I have such high costs for product and shipping and inventory and all that stuff. Whereas with licensing, it's just my time. And it can grow exponentially. So I think that's really how I kind of calculate also what direction to move in, is like, what is the best return on investment? What, takes the most overhead, or what's the most cost effective? And then how much do I enjoy it?
Right.
So I move forward in that way.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting about licensing because, licensing is tricky. And, I think there is definitely, there's this sort of myth that I'm always kind of out here trying to dispel of like, it's like the key to everything, because it is like, it does seem like I just make the art, someone else manufactures it. It is, I put my time into it and it can grow exponentially. And all of that is technically true, but like, how likely is that to happen? It's, I have, just from my own personal experience, I know some artists who have like, gotten into licensing and totally taken off, and like, that's their income. But I also know a ton of artists, and also myself included, who have been doing licensing for a long time, who have, like, I have a pretty large licensing portfolio, and I get work, but it's still a very small portion of my income, despite the fact that I have like tried to build it. So like, I get, licensing is such a tricky one for me, but you found that you see avenues for growth in it. Do you have an agent?
I don't. Yeah. Okay. I do not. Just curious. And I think, you're very right to say that. Like, I do think people, see, like, there's been like kind of a growth recently, especially in the last year, of like awareness for licensing your art. And a lot of people, rightly so, with beautiful work, trying to get into licensing, because I do think there's a little bit of like, oh, all your problems will be solved.
That's the thing. I'm just trying to make sure everyone who knows that it's not like it's not magic.
Well, there's a lot of work up front, like, because I could like, for example, I have a greeting card client and they're wonderful to work with and I absolutely love them. But I could work on 15 cards and put in my time for those 15 cards, and they could pick up one or they could pick up two. And then maybe that card just for whatever reason didn't hit the market quite right, like wasn't quite the right fit. And usually like when you work with clients, like they have a really good feel for their market and like what's going to work well. So like that's very few and far between, but sometimes you just have stuff that just doesn't sell, or you have a global pandemic, but like, you're very right to say that. Like on one hand, okay, I designed 15 cards and my client picked one. Now I can go put those cards in other homes if I have other clients.
See, you have the product-based business. So like,
right,
worst
exactly.
comes to worst, it's in your line, right? Like
right.
that kind of, see, then mine just kind of goes nowhere. And I wonder like what to do with that stuff. Like I've been trying to think now, because now I've had stuff in my portfolio since I started. I mean, obviously I'm adding new stuff, but there's some stuff that like I still love and still hasn't gone anywhere. And I'm like, what else can I do with that? Like, do I try to find someone to sell it outright to? Like, what do I do with that stuff? Because it is just sitting around. And that's why as you mentioned, I just hosted this portfolio makeover challenge. And it's because I reuse a lot of stuff in my portfolio and give it new life because it's sitting there and I did it already. And so it should, do a couple things to it and it can be something different, and it can hopefully attract new attention. But yeah, it's good to have, there's a benefit in having a product-based business that you can then eventually, sell it directly as you need to.
Yeah. And I do think like licensing, can be really great and can grow exponentially, but like I would say it's probably only 30 to 40% of my business. So I think it can be great and it can be really lucrative, but it can also like, I think in order to have a sustainable business, you need a couple of different parts so that when one of them, maybe is not in its like fullest season, another one can kind of come up and say like, okay, like for example, with wholesale, like all the retail stores closed. So like my wholesale just, but a lot of my licensing and like my passive income, I was lucky to have those relationships in place where, I have, like I work with Postable and there were so many people who were missing their friends and wanted to send them a greeting card. And so that, part of my business, like the licensing and things like that just really kind of took off. And so it's kind of this, I mean, what it's about.
Of course. Yeah. You have to have multiple, ways to.
Yeah. There's not one thing that's going to sustain your business completely. Like it's good to have all of your eggs in different baskets and whatever more metaphors you can come up with for that.
Totally. Well, we sort of talked about this. Where do you tend to get your client work? It sounds like Instagram is a big spot for that. Do you ever like pitch directly or through some other avenues that you get this work, or where's your hot spots? You don't have to give me all your secrets or anything, but I am totally taking notes. So,
well, I'm a person who naturally just likes to share. But I would say I do a lot of outreach. That's especially during like the early months of the year, and then like that middle spot in the summer where things kind of slow down and people are on vacation. I do a lot of client outreach, but the way that I find clients is typically on Instagram. Back before the pandemic, I did the old school art school thing of like going into, Barnes and Noble and looking at the magazines and seeing who the art director is and, going over to like the journal section in Barnes and Noble and flipping them over and seeing like, oh, who made this? Like,
right.
Okay, great. Like, let me take a picture of it and I'll see if I can find, the art director on LinkedIn, and that's a very kind of old school way of doing that. And I think it's the same with Instagram, it's the same concept. It's just, you're not walking into a store and, flipping over the back of a product. But if you find people that you like on Instagram, that you think, could be a good fit for collaboration, I just follow them and start like, I just start communicating with them. Like I'll like their stuff and I'll comment on stuff. And this is all, I mean, this is genuine, of course. I'm not just going to like blast them with a bunch of comments like, love it, very inauthentic. And I think people can tell, but I think, that platform is meant for engagement. And so if you're engaging with people, you're using the platform correctly. So I find a lot of clients on Instagram, and then I do a lot of direct outreach to them that way. And there's just brands that I've had like kind of in my arsenal. Like I have a list of brands that I have been wanting to work with, and I just keep adding to it. Like if I see a product out in the world, or if I, hear about it on TV, or, if I see, them on Instagram, like, oh, that's cool. I just kind of add them to that list. And when I'm at a good point, like I'll reach out to them. But then I have been very fortunate to get clients from Instagram who have said, we've been following you. We would like to work with you. Most of the time, people will say, we, like with Macy's, we saw this, this, and this, and we'd really like to use it. Or they'll say, for example, just recently I had someone say, we really like this image. Can we, is it available? And I get that a lot, actually. I'm doing a new greeting card line with a new client because they said, hey, we've been following you on Instagram. And so there's that balance of spending time on social media, because it does give you social proof. And, so many people use it as a portfolio space.
Yeah, that's what, I'd say it's like your second homepage. Like you need to have things that and it is a portfolio. It's like, update my Instagram way more than I update my website. I need to update my website.
Exactly.
But
exactly. So I feel like it's a combination of direct outreach and then a combination of people finding me, which has been great. So
I love that. So I have one more question. I always talk about money, and so this is my bonus question, because I want people to understand sort of the realities of this. And of course, I'm not asking you to share anything that you're not comfortable with, but how long, after you started your business, you said that you had started to kind of grow it when you were still working in-house. How long do you feel like it took you to get to sort of a livable wage?
Erin was gracious enough to answer this question for me. We discussed where we both started when we were working in-house, our salaries, as opposed to what we earned becoming freelancers. So you can check out that bonus video by signing up for my Surface Pattern Boss Toolkit, which is totally free. Head to elizabethsilver.com/fresh and sign up, and you'll see this bonus video in my toolkit.
Well, this has been so wonderful. I really appreciate talking with you and learning more about your business and hearing all these insights about copyright and about, I think that having done a lot of, interviews with other artists, I think the thing that we always kind of come to the same conclusion of is that, it's putting in the work, it's taking one step at a time, it's practicing, it's trying things, and it's like you wish there was a shortcut, but at the end of the day, you can only learn by doing, which is why I'm such a big proponent of like, go out and do it. Like, even if it's not the right thing, at least you'll learn it's not the right thing because you just tried it, instead of getting so in your head about like, I don't have a style, so I can't pitch myself right now, or whatever it is, So anyways, but I really appreciate getting to interview you. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Elizabeth. I really enjoyed this.
Thanks so much for watching. Thanks again to Erin. Be sure to check her out. In the description, I've got all kinds of information about Paper Raven Co. and where you can follow Erin. And follow me at eSilverDesign on Instagram. And be sure to subscribe to this channel because I have lots of great interviews coming. And I promise I'm going to get some improved sound quality in the future. I know this one was also a little bit glitchy with some microphone issues, so hopefully we're going to be improving on that soon.